Hello friends, I'm the Otter. Today we're going to diagnose some severe oil leaking on a 1997 Toyota 4Runner. So this applies to any car with an oil leak. It is very important to diagnose the oil leak. So if your car looks like this, don't freak out because it may be a $5 O-ring and a very simple repair, but you need to diagnose it properly. So let's jump into the video. So a good idea is just reseal the valve cover gasket because it's the very top of the engine and likely your car is very neglected if it looks that bad. So after driving this for a couple weeks, overnight I get about this much oil. So this is definitely worth diagnosing and chasing. So I'll talk about the levels of oil leak a little bit later. First step, we're gonna need some way to catch all the oil falling off the car. So welcome to the best $10 I have ever spent in Harbor Freight. So this is called a mixing tub. It's not necessarily an oil drain pan and it works 10 times better. I linked this one in the description to Amazon. It's a little bit more because of the shipping. So our first step is just knock off the big chunks with some blue paper towels. I highly recommend a P100 respirator and chlorinated brake cleaner because it does a better job at cleaning, but this stuff is absolutely savage. So don't do it in a closed garage, as I found out the hard way. Best idea to start on the top so all the brake cleaner is falling down. So you want to spray all four corners of the engine. And this way, basically, you'll cover all the leaks. With a healthy dose of brake cleaner running down the engine, it is already starting to look better. After the first spray down, this engine is definitely leaking more oil on the passenger side, so I'm going to go through and run through another can of brake cleaner from the top. There is the option to use a pressure washer, but this is a 1997, so all the electrical connectors are worn out. So if you spray a pressure washer in this engine, you're probably going to have a bad day. On a newer car, I may use a pressure washer. This is probably the most vital tool when it comes to the oil leak diagnosis. So we need compressed air, and if you're a DIY specialist like myself, a leaf blower does the job. So this dries off all the brake cleaner to make everything dry because we need to diagnose things, and it pushes the brake cleaner down into the tub on the bottom. Next can of brake cleaner, make sure you have a respirator because when you're laying on the ground and that stuff is falling down near you, it is really stinky. This is the precise reason you need to diagnose oil leaks. So it could be an oil pan, a front seal, or an oil pump seal on the front of the engine. So the oil pan is extremely expensive to replace because we need to remove the differential. So we need to find the Exxon Valdez leak because I'm sure everything's leaking, but we're trying to find the worst leak on the car that's dripping on the ground. When your car is leaking oil and you're driving down the road, you're basically just blowing oil all over the place. So it's impossible to diagnose without doing a cleanup. So definitely have a sacrifice rag to take off the big chunks. So this may seem absolutely hopeless, but wait till you see the end. So here's the process: brake cleaner, respirator, and then use the leaf blower to dry things off. So remember, we're cleaning up the engine to diagnose, not cleaning the actual car. So let her run for about 10 minutes because this oil leak is so bad I'm sure it's already leaking. So look how clean it is already. It's pretty impressive. This engine is fairly unfamiliar to me, so I don't know the oil leak points, but I can see right behind all the drive belts is the oil pump and it looks like it's leaking pretty bad within 10 minutes. But that also could have been rundown brake cleaner that I was spraying in from the top. So you want to do the same steps over. You're going to spray it with brake cleaner and then get the leaf blower and completely dry it off and run the engine. Because remember, the fan is also pushing air and could be pushing the oil in the old brake cleaner around. The Exxon Valdez has been sitting in here for a couple days. So check it out. All I need to do is look up, directly up, where that oil leak is, and that is the volcanic leak in the Exxon Valdez. There is three kinds of oil leaks. There's the seeper, the leaker, and then there's the volcanic, can't drive the car leak. So the oil leak you just looked at is a severe leaker. So if you have a seeper, I wouldn't even really worry about it. I'm sure everything on this truck is seeping oil, but we are chasing the major leak. So we all live in 2024 and information is absolutely everywhere on the internet. So we do have an idea that the oil leak is at the front of the engine, the front seal, or the oil pump. So let's jump into the Google research and see what's common on these 4-cylinder Toyota trucks. So it looks like a pretty common issue for the oil pump to be leaking and the front seal. So basically, as things get old, rubber turns very hard and it stops sealing. Fortunately for us, or me, Toyota sells an O-ring for the oil pump. We don't have to buy an entire oil pump assembly. They can be very complicated to install and an expensive part. So here's the front seal, probably the most common one for it to puke all over the ground. So I did learn something really important in this video. Obviously, I'm not the best mechanic in the world and I'm always learning day by day. While the front of the engine was leaking this much oil in 10 minutes of running, I thought that for sure this was the volcanic oil leak. But check this out. Once I pulled the car in the garage and it sat for a few days, the source of the puddle of oil was actually not the front of the engine. It was directly underneath the oil filter. So another Google research turns out this oil filter housing is super common to leak, and there's a couple O-rings you need to replace. This is a long series of videos restoring this classic 1997 third generation 4Runner. So if you want to see the entire build, click this playlist on your screen.